Good
Wait,
evening. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm Karen,
and I'm Delasber.
and this evening we are coming to you to talk about journaling your way through the pivot. So, what does that mean to you out there this evening? Journaling your way through the pivot. Have you ever thought about it in that way? Do you think about the pivots, or do you even pivot? Do you even realize that a pivot is a part of life? So, what does pivot mean to you? How do you pivot through your daily life? Um, the topic is journaling through the pivot, but you need to know what the pivot is first before you can journal about it. So, D,
You know, this is this is a tough topic for me today. Um, Actually, today I'm doing my best to make some pivots in my life. It's and don't get me wrong, pivots happen for me all the time because being in this house, we have to change directions every 2 or 3 seconds almost. It seems like so. I should be really, really good at this, but this is something that it takes me a little time to work through because I'm always, you know what, Karen, I think I'm always in that moment of trying to figure out where I'm going and
mm-hmm,
what's there
mm-hmm,
instead of like we were talking about the other day with being in the here.
right,
I'm always too busy trying to get there, and that gets me kind of bottled up in. Um, so I don't really know, but I think now it's just about how do I maneuver my brain to switch off that I got to make this work, I got to make this work, I got to make this work, and
mm-hmm.
just say, okay, it is what it is. Nothing I can do about it.
That's right.
So I'm going to go to sleep. And when I wake up tomorrow, pray that it's changed.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys feel about that? Come on, talk to us. I see two people here. We'd like to know who you are. Say hi so that we can say hi back because your hi does matter. So, what do you think, Karen? How do we do this?
I mean, okay, oh, sorry, I was pulling it up. Um, I mean, pivoting is important, and first of all, how about everybody write the word journal down? I mean, write the word pivot down in the comments. Just write, type the word pivot in the comments and think about it, right? Think about what it means and what we actually do when we pivot. Because a pivot can actually be more of a blessing than a curse. A pivot can be, that story you told the other day, D, about how God came by, the man was waiting for God, and it was a flood, and then he bought the boat, and he said waiting for God, and all this other thing. A pivot could be that.
Mm-hmm.
A pivot can be that, right? We don't think about it when it's happening because we're so gung ho on what we want. So if you think about a pivot actually takes you from what you want because it's moving from what you want. So it's pulling you from where you are, rather what you want, to where you probably need to be. And if it not, but if the situation never happened or occurred, you would never have had to pivot. But that could be a way to get you to actually realize that things don't always happen the way you want it to happen. And sometimes that is for a very good reason because you weren't doing it right in the beginning. And you need to pivot to change your point of view. It gives you other possibilities, right? It helps you to see things another way. People have tunnel vision when it comes to what they want, and they don't want to hear what other people have to say. So when they want what they want when they want it, and things don't always work out that way, they're like, oh my goodness, like the world is coming to an end. But it's not. You just have to learn how to pivot in the moment. So that's why I said write the word pivot in the chat. Think about what it means, and then you can talk about when it comes to the journaling part. You can say, you know what you would journal about is how you made a pivot during your day, right? What was the pivot about? What did it look like? What did you think was going to happen? And the pivot had you do something different. And then think about, was it beneficial? Was it even better than what you thought? It usually is. These are questions you need to ask yourself. So this is one why journaling is important, because it helps you think on a deeper level, and it helps you dig deep and ask those questions that you would never ask. At least you're asking it to yourself, and you're not in the presence of other people. You're by yourself. You can ask yourself all the tough questions when you're by yourself. But maybe the pivot will have you ask it in that moment, as opposed to wait until you get by yourself. And then you have to, think about it. Now you pivot, and then you're like, well, wait, now I see it different. A pivot is just another way of looking at things. It will get you to where you want to be, but pivot, it happens for a reason. It's also there to get you out of your own way. A pivot is definitely there. It can get you out of your own way, right? If you don't pivot, either you're going to sit in the funk and do nothing about it. The only way you're going to get out of it is if you pivot. So the pivot is there to help you move out of that emotion, whatever that is. That's why journaling is so important, because it helps you ask the tough questions. And then you can say, well, you know what? I thought it was going to be, you know, apples. It turns out to be oranges, but actually I didn't realize I was allergic to apples, and oranges are better for me. You just never know. I just use it as an example, two different types of fruit. So, but we have to always be mindful of why we are moving the way we are moving. We don't always know why the pivot comes, but eventually, maybe a week later, 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, okay, I'm glad I did that way. I heard a woman giving a story about, no, it wasn't even a woman. I was listening in Dr. Finch's room on Sunday, and the young lady was saying that, she was on the highway and she wanted to go one way, and then, something happened and she got kind of like turned around, but not really that turned around. It was a detour. And she was like, after she got through to the other side, she's like, oh my gosh, I missed that pile up on whatever it was, right? Interstate it was. But it was a pivot. She probably was annoyed that she had to do it, but the pivot saved her life. So a pivot is important. We don't think about it. We don't give it that much emphasis, but we should think about what it was and what it meant at the time, and how the pivot saved us from something or helped us move towards something, changed our mind, because again, people love to have a one-track mind, and it's easy, it's comfortable to have a one-track mind because it means that you only listen to yourself anyway. And that's kind of difficult in the time, in the world that we live in. The world is so big yet so small in certain instances. We have to think about how a pivot can change our life. And I'm not going to say for the good or the bad. I'm going to say for the good and the good. Because we always have to put a negative connotation. Oh, for the good and the bad. No, we don't need that. It's either for the good, for the better. It either made something good or it made something better. It's not good or bad when it comes to a pivot. It's not good or bad when it comes to a pivot. You may in your mind at the moment think, oh, this is bad, and now I have to do this. But the this that you have to do is probably way more beneficial for you and whatever your situation is. So it's important to learn how to pivot, and pivot in grace. Don't pivot where you have to be pulled like some bull off of off the we don't want that. We don't want you to be pulled. You should pivot in grace and pivot knowing that it is going to be better for you, as opposed to throwing a temper tantrum while you're pivoting, because you'll never be able to see the blessing. You'll never be able to see the grace that was given to you in that pivot, in that time, in that moment. So it's important for you to learn how to pivot and pivot with grace. We all know that everything's not going to go our way. That's just life. So instead of having a temper tantrum about it, we need to definitely realize what a pivot is, realize how it helps us, and realize that it's really not that bad. Because if you think about what the pivot was moving you from, hmm, I mean, there's a definite joy in that. But again, if you're so hell bent on seeing things your way and having this fit anyway, you won't even recognize that you've been given a second chance to do something in a better way. To do something for the good of somebody else. Because when you have one track mind, you're thinking of your own gain. And I every day I tell people, this is not about you, right? It's not about you. The pivot is moving you to growth. And growth is important. And when you grow emotionally and mentally, it helps you to do things that you never thought you would do. You learn to give back, because your give back is giving into yourself. People don't realize that. They want to take, but it's not in the taking that you win. It is in the giving that you win. It allows you to grow as a person. It allows you to see who you really, really are, and allows you to push your human side, because you are a human being. We are all human beings. You're human first. All that other stuff is extra. You're human first. So we need to see that human side, so you can realize that it is not about you. People need to get over themselves and realize it is not about them. It's not. It's not about you. It's not about your needs and your wants, because it's just not. Let's just get over that. It's not. That's just point blank period. Not. Not about you. It's about you being human and doing for others that you pray to God every day. God, I want, or whomever you pray to. I would like this for me. I would like this for my family. You want him to do all these things for you, but what have you done for others lately in order to do that? So those things happen in a pivot. A pivot is growth. It's challenging, yes, but it is still growth. It pushes you forward. It helps you to be a better human being. It helps you to do human being things, like give to others and not think of self. So, and again, that's why I said journaling through the pivot, because when you journal, all those things start to come to you. You start realizing that, hey, I really am not that bad of a person. No, I would do that. Sometimes we put up a facade, we wear another face for society. And then when we get home, you take the face off and you're like, ooh, that was a lot. Take the face off and now you're in the dumps, because now you had all that stuff laid on you. So journaling will help you find the human side of yourself, the giving part of yourself, the loving part of yourself, that allows you to actually relax, relate, and release. D.
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, Tanya, how are you?
Hey
Uh,
T, how are you?
it's good
You
to
know,
see you.
I was on my box again. I'm sorry.
That is quite all right. I like your box because you're really preaching to me today. Having to pivot a lot today. And it's been, to be honest, it's been a struggle.
Mhm.
But I have come over some things. And one thing, that I'm not quite over yet, but I'm working on it.
48
It's,
hours. 48
huh?
hours. I promise you. 48 hours.
Okay. You guys, Karen told me to give it 48 hours, so I'm not supposed to worry about it for 48 hours. So I'm trying to let it go for 48 hours. Not an easy thing for me, but the thing that you said before we actually got on live was persevere. And it's that part of the pivot that I think a lot of us miss out on. And I pull myself into that category because we pivot and we're fussing. We're so busy fussing about this pivot that when we're in the middle of it, we can't really see how, like you say, the pivot was a better spot. We were placed in a better spot than we would have been had we not made the pivot. Um, because in our minds, all right, as my brother used to say, in my mind's eye, I
Hmm.
see myself in a perfect spot on the on the journey that I was on that route, on I-49. I saw myself on a perfect spot. But if I-49, if there's a wreck on I-49 and I have to get off, I'm lost because I don't know back roads where I live. I just know the interstate. I know how to get where I'm going. So I think that's where it is that when we have to make that pivot, we've already mapped out our way
Hmm.
this way. We've already decided we're going, if I'm going to take myself home, I'm going out of Baton Rouge, I'm going through St. Francisville, I'm going through Natchez, I'm going through Vidalia, I'm going through Sicily Island, I'm going through Gilbert, I'm going to through this little thing called Chase that if you blink, you miss it. And then I'm going to be in my hometown of Winsboro. I've mapped it out so I know how I need to get there. But if one little thing messes up and I have to detour, let's say I can't get across the bridge in Natchez to get over to Louisiana, I'm lost because the only way I know is that way that I've mapped out. So that, as you call it, tunnel vision is making it so when I have to shift it, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it because I don't know anything else. I don't like the unknown. That's been my problem all my life. I've never liked the unknown. And I talk a lot about parts of myself that I think Amory was brought here to change.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of those things. She was brought here to change my fear of the unknown because I'll literally not do it because I don't know how it's going to turn out on the end.
That's
But
fair.
where she was concerned, I had no choice. I had to walk, as they say, boldly into that good night. I had to
Hmm.
walk and I had to get into the unknown and allow myself to be there and be okay and not be frantic. But I still find myself every now and then that unknown pops back in my head and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do
That's
this.
fair. That's fair.
And that's where, and what is the acronym for fear? Do you know that acronym?
You can
False.
do.
Does anybody know it? It's like false something.
Tanya, do you know the acronym for fair?
If you know it, write it down for us. Uh,
I didn't know there
it's
was.
like something appearing real,
You would know better than me. The
you
acronym
know,
for fair.
and that's where I am. And I think that the pivot for me is truly persevering and pushing my way through because that's the only thing I can do.
It's true.
That's
So
where my that's where my resilience comes in, and that's honestly journaling was the way I got through Amory being on life support.
hmm
Okay, false what, Tanya? I know it's false something. Um, I journaled, and believe it or not, that journaling turned into the book
Oh,
because
you see what she said?
false examples.
Appearing
I don't
real.
know. Makes sense to me though. I don't know. I'm gonna go with that one. I'm gonna go with that one because it makes
Right.
sense to me. False examples appearing real. It's something like that though, and because we've got to know. Thank you. We've got to know that we got to push through, no matter what. We got to push through,
We do.
and I think that people come into our lives to teach us things, and we're learning things from these people. And my daughter is teaching me to push through. And that is something that, my aunt told me she'd be a leader of her people. I think she's leading me to be able to, yeah, that's it. False evidence appearing real. And that's where I am a lot of times. I have this idea and this concept in my mind, and that's the way it is. Because in my mind, that's the way it is, but it's really false. It really is not. It's not a big deal.
Right.
It's not anything at all. So if we make pivots
Mm-hmm.
and if we hang in there and persevere with these pivots and we push ourselves through, what might be on the other side of the pivot? Mm, that's a good one, Tanya. Fears of
Functionality.
pivot. Functionality on
Mm-hmm.
the other side of the pivot?
Mm-hmm. You couldn't function on the other side before you pivoted. You were functioning in your own realm. You were functioning under whatever you had going in here, whether it was true, false, or indifferent. Now this pivot has allowed you to see something a different way. You function different when you pivot, and the pivot shows you something different. So you can actually function in a positive way. Before you had tunnel vision. How do you function in tunnel vision? You only focused on what you want. That's a dysfunctional function because it's only about you. And I just said the world is not about you. You have to be able to have a functional life that includes other people. Now, I'm not talking about people that have problems with certain things. I'm talking about people that don't have problems with certain things, people that are just used to having things their way. That's different. That's not functioning in reality. If you can get on the other side of the pivot, now there's functionality on the other side because now you're going to function in a positive way because the pivot should have taught you something.
Mm, now
The pivot should have
that
taught you
there,
something.
that there. Um, as they say in my home state, that right there is a mouthful because we don't see the lessons in the pivots a lot of times.
No,
So, do you think, I'm sorry,
no, I said we don't. No.
do you think that a way to see the lesson is to journal? Is
Yes.
that what's going to help us see the lesson?
Yeah, because if you remember a few minutes ago, I said when you journal, you get clarity and you can see things better because it helps you ask yourself the tough questions. I'm going to read a quote from
Okay.
the journal. One's perseverance can only be measured by how much they are willing to give up. You can get through anything. Mind over matter, you are powerful. So even before I read the last part of it, just the quote alone, one's perseverance can only be measured by how much they are willing to give up. How much of yourself are you willing to give up when you have to do that pivot?
Hmm.
Because you can persevere. We can persevere through anything, but if your perseverance is only you just persevering because I'm persevering because I got up at 8 instead of 7:30 and I have to persevere for these next 30 minutes. I gotta, push. I gotta struggle for this. This ain't real perseverance. It's not perseverance. You just got late. Unless you had somewhere to go or you had some time crunch. This isn't perseverance. You're not going through a struggle because you got up half an hour later. You may be late to wherever you're going, but struggle. 30 minutes. I'm talking about people that's going through the rough, rugged, dirt, dirty, mud, dragging, pull down, fight for their life just to breathe. Just to, I got to, that whole, I have to drag myself out the bed in the morning because I didn't feel like getting up. Because last night I thought that I might do something to myself. Or I've had bad news, or I've gotten bad news, or I lost people. I'm talking about perseverance through real things. But that's just us, stacking on the negativity, stacking on the negativity. But it says one's perseverance can only be measured by how much they are willing to give up. What are we willing to give up? Are you willing to shed those layers of all the negativity? Because all those things that's piled on top of you, just come to check to see how you're gonna let it sit. Because once you be like, I'm not studying you, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this with you today. It don't sit around too long because it can't. It can't sit. But if you sit there like, oh yeah, oh child, my back hurt, oh my neck hurt, it start piling up, oh my knee hurt. You start getting all kind of things that wasn't even hurt before. But we manifest that. That's why I said you can get through anything, mind over matter. You are powerful. This thing here, I mean, I actually seen a woman who was not pregnant, but she said she was pregnant. She had a belly that was 7 months big. It's here. It's people that have some people have these issues, but it was here. This is powerful. This is very powerful. And if it's that powerful, and we know it is, but we control it. We control that.
Mm-hmm.
We control that. So just like perseverance, we know how much. We don't know how much we can take, because I know you talked about that the last time. You said people shouldn't say that, but we don't know how much we can take. But who said that you can't get through any? Remember last week we talked about support. We talked about, but even if you wanted to do self-care and if you didn't have a support, right? But you had a journal that you can just say, you know what, let me pick this up and start. When you see that, one's perseverance can only be measured by how much they're willing to give up. You start thinking, what have I given up anything to persevere through? Have I given up anything? Or did I just want to say, woe is me? I want it my way and just go back to the same old thing. The same old thing is not going to help you get through reality. The same old thing helps you get through your day and what you have created, which is a false reality. But is the pivot really? So the pivot, is it something that's come by and you just didn't do it? Because again, remember you said we both agreed that people they don't recognize it, they don't know, and that guess what? When you in your own way, people, you need to pivot and you won't do it. But had you pivot, you wouldn't be homeless. It's just an example. But I'm just saying, had you pivot, you wouldn't have been homeless because you want to be stuck in your way. But journaling allows you to sit and ask. That's something people wouldn't ask themselves. What did I give up? Did I really give it? Who's gonna ask themselves that? Nobody. But journaling allows you to answer hard questions. And maybe somebody, your coworker, will come up to you and say something like, oh, you know what? You need to change your way of thinking. You're always so negative. You never think of other people. And you probably be like, ain't nothing wrong with me. It's wrong with you. Something wrong with you. Immediately you jump on the defense, not realizing that you probably are tad negative. And then that negativity is probably what got you figuring out, how I'm going to pay my rent, how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to do that. And then somebody comes along and say, she came along and she gave you a nugget, but you felt that she was just being rude. That was a pivot. That was her coming to you to get you to understand, I see this. And you need to do these things in order to change the way you are going. But you so caught up in your tunnel vision, you still having your old pity party and whatever thing you doing in your tunnel vision. Now guess what? New month, no rent, you out.
Exactly.
The pivot can change that. You never know who you have a connection with. That movie, 6 Degrees of Separation, is very real. It's very real.
Yes.
And people don't realize that. You just never know who you could have touched with a kind word. You never know who you could have touch with just a touch on the shoulder. You never know what your words when the person says you're so mean, you so this, you so that. You change your talk because your talk will affect your walk. You have to, and that changing of the talk is a pivot. It is a pivot. You change your talk, it helps you pivot, and then it affects your walk, which has you walking with more confidence. It has you walking, being more of a human being. It has you walking in love. It has you walking in giving. It has you walking and understanding that the world does not revolve around you. I say it all the time. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not. But that's what tunnel vision will make you think. I see it one way. I see it my way. It's my way. It's this way. It's this. It's like Daffy Duck he did in that thing. Mine. Down, down, down. Remember that he was doing?
Yes.
He was trying to get them jewels, but it was all about him and what he wanted. And Butts was like, Daffy, what's wrong with you? What has gotten into you? That's not the same Daffy Duck he knew before. I'm just saying, I'm just using different examples because sometimes people don't get the first example that you use. I don't know what that is. Sometimes, sometimes people don't get the first example that you use. It's probably bot, but so you just have to continue to stretch. Stretching is important. It helps you become limber, and when you're limber, you're flexible, and you can kind of sway. Like it's fun. It's fun. Oh, we can't go that way. Let's go over here, because it's fine. If you move with ease, it'll be all right. Don't try to go dragging no. I'm telling you, you got to be flexible, because when that pivot comes, you just never know how it's going to come. I'm not, and look how small, like just those words. Somebody could have just been like, "Oh, okay, you know what? You're right. Maybe that was too harsh, or maybe that was too." People don't think about that. So journaling can help you actually get to. It can actually help you ask the hard questions. Look at yourself in the mirror. You know, that's the exercise people should try. Look at yourself in the mirror, and ask yourself tough questions. I mean, it starts with you, and I mean, I only can see myself in the mirror. Because if I'm not in front of the mirror, you can't tell me something's crooked if I don't think it is. But if I get in front of that mirror,
And you have to look honestly. You have to look honestly. Hello, Astanda. You have to
hello.
look honestly. And it's interesting because you haven't read my post from this morning. And I only know that because you just told me you hadn't read it. And I talked about my marriage in the post. And I told people that I had a pivot. I had a huge pivot in my marriage, and it the pivot threw me, and it made me see what I had
Mm,
and what I was letting go of
mm,
because I wasn't seeing who I truly was in the relationship. And I remember sitting down one day and I said, you know what? You have to fight for a marriage. You
mm-hmm,
have to fight for it. And the thing that I learned about myself and I did journal about this, the thing that I learned about myself was I was so angry about stuff that he did and was doing that I couldn't see stuff I was doing and stuff that I had done.
mm-hmm,
And I found myself going, wait a minute, why won't he do this and why won't he do this and why won't he do this and why am I having to handle all of this with aim by myself? I'm here and I'm by myself because he's not doing anything or else he wants to be at work all the time and not deal with her, which made me even angrier because I was still having to deal with her all by myself. And I just said, you know what? He never he never wavered. He stayed the same. He was the same person. I was the one who was off in left field somewhere. And when I realized that we were both fighting, but the problem was he was fighting for us. but I was fighting for me.
Mm.
And when I realized that I was fighting for me because the most important person in my life at that moment was that little girl in that bed right now. And that's what I was fighting for. I didn't see a us. I saw my baby, my
Mm-hmm.
baby. And when
Mm-hmm.
I decided to start fighting for us as well,
Mm.
things changed.
Mm.
So, but I had to get to that big pivot to even be able to see that. And I
Mm.
told her the story and I said, for 4.5 years, people didn't know. Our families didn't know. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
live here. He was just here during the day until Aim went to sleep because we wanted her life to stay steady. It was not until he got sick that he came back in and I was able to see, oh my God, wait a minute. I actually do love this man and I do actually want this to work and I do actually need to fix myself
Mm.
because I had to realize that I had some issues.
Yeah, tunnel vision.
Ooh, ooh, I don't even know how long the tunnel was. It was miles and
Mm.
it was small. Only I could fit in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just when you pivot and you look and you see, okay, all this time I've been doing this and this was over here,
Yep.
it's amazing. So that's why I think about when you talk about the pivot and persevering and pushing through,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm a better person for it. He has a better wife for it. Amory, even though I was a dadgum good mama before this, but Aim has an amazing mama now
Mm-hmm.
because I'm able to stand in who I am for real
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledge that I can be an itch bay sometimes without even blinking an eye. My tongue can cut you to your core without even thinking about it.
That's a defense mechanism.
Exactly, but I never really thought about that before. And now I see myself. And I can remember when, because you guys, we talk about Mama Ismay all the time. I can remember talking to Mama Ismay one day and she said, well, baby, what did you do? And I was like, I didn't do nothing. And she said, well, maybe that's the problem.
Mm.
It didn't strike me until about maybe a week ago. And I could hear her saying that again. And I remember thinking, this was months ago, months ago. And I was like, okay, I hear you, Mama Ismay. I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I got your number. So I think where we got to start working is we got to start pivoting and we got to start journaling. And you guys, I'm telling you, you are not going to find a better journal than the one scrolling across this page. I'm going to need you to go and get the on a personalnotejournal.com because Miss Kara's journal will give you some life. Get it? And that's all I have to say tonight.
But I have a question for you before we.
Before we go, okay, I might have an answer.
So it's a question, so I just want your answer.
Okay, it has. I know. It'll trigger you, girl. It'll trigger you. Okay, shoot your question.
So right, you persevering through something, right? You were just talking about your marriage.
Hmm.
Persevered, right? And you pivoted and you pushed. So in that push, did it birth something new? Because you were pushing hard. It seems to me that it birthed a new you for a better you and him. You just said he got a whole new wife. So it
Yeah,
birthed a new Delasper.
Yeah, it did. It it birthed something new. It actually birthed, I think, a more compassionate Delasper, uh, a person who could see beyond the veils that
Mhm.
people put up because I had one for so long. And I think that that's why my relationships are stronger and I'm able to deal with Amory better. You know, I talk to Dr. Allen and she talks and she says the where you guys who see me all the time on Zoom, if AIM came in the room, I was turning off the camera. I didn't want people to see her. I didn't know what was going to happen. I wanted to keep her hidden from the world because I didn't want people to judge her. And now I just, she is who she is. You get to know her, you don't get to know her. That's your choice. But I'm not hiding her anymore. And I'm letting people know just because she's nonverbal does not mean she does not understand everything you say. So when you open your mouth, check yourself because this little girl is paying attention. And I want people to know, and I know that I have to do this for other children like her. I want people to know that at some point in the world, uh, oh, yeah, I want them to know at some point in this world that we live in, we're going to have a president, a vice president, secretary of state. Everybody in Congress is going to be on the spectrum before this world ends. The president of the United States is going to be on the spectrum before this world ends. I want people to understand that the last time I checked, being able to use the bathroom by yourself was not a requirement to be the president of the United States. So don't write these children off that can't do this because you don't know what they can do. And when you stop to think and find out what they can do, you might be a little shocked that most of these children, and I can tell you right now, the smartest person in my house, and I'm pretty damn smart, okay? But the smartest person in my house is a 10-year-old child. And I'm not just talking common sense wise, I'm talking intellectually. The smartest person in my house is a 10-year-old. And that's what I want the world to see. So I think going through this pivot in my life has allowed me to let go of my shell,
You let go of the
which
shell.
kept her.
Okay. Okay. So that gave you the functionality that I was talking about earlier now, huh? You
Yeah,
see?
yeah,
You see it?
yeah.
The
Huh.
functionality. As Stonda
And
said. You see what Stonda said?
hold on.
I don't really think about it that much as Stonda, but
Not me, girl. Karen will take you somewhere. But
I
it's
just
life.
yeah, I just have people. You know why? Because we don't all look at things the same way. And I know my mind doesn't work like everybody else's. I kind of put things together very differently. But it's people that, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Oh, you're right. I didn't, you know, and it's a form of a pivot. I had to learn that myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing it. And I learned it's a pivot. I think that's why, but I know that's why I pivot so well. Because I have no problem with it.
Mm.
Okay, if that's what you want. Whatever. I, you know, it is what it is, right?
And see, that's one of Warren's favorite statements, and it used to unnerve me. Every time he
Unnerving.
said it, yeah. Every time he said it, used to get under my skin. I was like, how can you say that? It is what it is. Well, is it gonna change?
See?
I don't know, but what are you gonna do about it? It is what it is. I'd be like, that was something I couldn't take either. And now, again, like I told you guys, I look at stuff and I say, is that important to me?
Mm,
And I say yes or no. And if it's yes, like if you want the blue pill or the red pill,
mm.
if it's important to me, I ask myself, who put the importance on it?
There you go.
And then I have to say, I did. And then I have to say, well, who could take the importance off of it? I can. So then I just say, okay, it's not that important. And I go on to
Mm,
the next thing. You got to learn to do that or you will literally go crazy.
mm. Pivot.
So I think we're pivoting every single moment of our lives. We just don't know it. But when big stuff happens, we think, oh my God, like today, this big thing happened. Well, last night, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I've been pivoting all my friggin' life. I've been having to make changes all my life. I've been having to make detours all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still here. So guess what? Exactly, Tanya. Life is just one big, humongous pivot.
It is. It is. It is. It is.
We
It
just
is.
have to make sure we keep our feet on the floor.
Right. It's
One
true.
foot on the floor at all times.
Yeah. Because life has ebbs and flows. Life has ebbs and flows, and those highs and lows. It's all the same thing. However you want to say it, it's all a pivot. However you want to look at it, high, low, up, down. It's all a pivot. It's all a pivot. We have a pivot is an adjustment period. It's an adjustment. It's like going to the chiropractor, right? Chiropractor gives
Exactly.
you an adjustment. I'm telling you. And after that, you walk different. You breathe different. Things are different. You're like, oh, my sight is so much clearer now. I can hear better. The pivot.
But you know what, Karen? You know what this it just came to my mind? It's like we just watched this Super Bowl. People who watched it, okay. We just watched this Super Bowl. Throughout this entire game, the quarterbacks are pivoting.
Mm.
Just bam, 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 bam.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're calling plays on the field because they're pivoting through everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all think the Rams knew what they will have to do at the very end of that game to win it? No, they pivoted on the field to win that game. We got to remember, like Tanya said, life is just one big freaking pivot. And if
Yes.
we could get that through our heads, we realize that it's not that bad to pivot because you're literally pivoting every single second of the day without even knowing it. So, oh, this has been good.
It has. This is a good one. And I mean, I'm glad you are smiling now.
Thank you, because you know
I
it's
know.
been it's been a big one for me, but I'm okay.
As soon as I saw you, I said, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, you look a little stressed, sister."
Yeah, and I was, and I'm giving it to 48 hours. In fact, I may give it 2, 3 months. I don't know. It's just
Hey, hey,
it's
if
gonna
that's what it
happen. It's
means,
gonna happen.
okay. The pivot. And what'd you say? What's the topic? I said, what did I say?
The pivot.
The pivot.
Yeah, I know y'all think we know what we're doing. We really don't. We just come together, look at each other, and I say, okay, what are we talking about tonight? You know. So tonight we talked about journaling and journaling your way through this pivot. And I promise you, if you get the on a personal note journal, you will pivot your way through some journaling here. Because this girl's stuff is deep. And just so you'll know, all of these prompts in this journal came from her brain. So that's something else. If you've been listening to her and you've been like intrigued by the stuff like Asanda says that comes out her mouth, you need to get this journal because it's gonna blow your socks off. And then when you get her journal, I'm gonna need you to register for the resilience masterclass and get the 5 keys. I'm gonna drop the link for that because you need your 5 keys to resilience. And you know what resilience is? A big friggin' pivot. I tell you, the pivoting is just happening. That's all resilience is. It's a big pivot.
Mhm.
And I got 5 keys. I promise y'all, you can get your power back with those 5 keys. So I'm gonna need you to get Tanya's journal, and
Can't.
then I'm gonna need you. Oh Lord Jesus, I'm sorry. I need y'all to get Tanya's journal too, though. Tanya's planner. We're gonna put that on the thing tomorrow.
Mhm.
But I need you to get Karen's journal, and because I'm trying to read to see. Yeah, okay. And then I need you to go and register for this free class. And really, it's going to be a conversation with me. And we're just going to talk about these 5 keys. Register for this. It's going to be February the 21st at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Y'all, I wanted Tuesday. I did. I wanted the Tuesday. I wanted 2/22/22. But my coach had a class that day, so I wanted to go to her class, so I gave up the 2/22/22. So I'm doing my number, which is 21. 21 is my number. If you know anything about me, I need you to put in the chat why 21 is my number because there's more than just one reason. Okay.
Well, the pivot was
So
good, huh?
the pivot was real good, girl. I have pivoted and I am excited.
Mhm.
And I need y'all to go buy this journal. Okay. And Tanya, I'm gonna need you to pop your link for your planner in the chat. And Asanda, I'm gonna need you to pop your link for your masterclass in the chat. Because once you get your stuff together with this journaling, you're gonna have to get your stuff together with your finances. Cause see that that's some stuff there, all right? We can't have Uncle Sam coming to pick y'all up.
That's right. And that is the lovely Estanda herself, the master of the numbers.
That's right. She
She
can break
makes
it down
sure,
for you.
yeah, she makes sure, the math is mathing because when it's not, IRS can get you.
And y'all know the IRS is after some people now, so y'all need to check yourselves and
Yeah.
make sure stuff is right.
Yep.
So
So
you
Tanya,
won't
you
have to
can put
put
your
it in the jail.
yeah, exactly. So Tanya, you can put your link to your SLP planner, please, and thank you. Miss Estanda, please put your link to your masterclass coming up
That's right.
so everyone can see the awesomeness that we celebrate every day.
You guys, it's
Mhm.
been real.
Are they putting it in? I don't see it yet.
Come on, y'all. Put it in there. I'm gonna have to make me. I'm gonna make me a list tomorrow of everybody's links. That's what I'm
Yeah.
gonna do. So I can just start popping them in,
Yep.
popping them in. You see, that's how we make the dream work. Teamwork. Teamwork.
Teamwork is the pivot. Just saying.
That's right.
You know why? Because it's not about who. It's not about you.
It's not about me. It
Hey,
really
it's not
isn't.
about you. It's
It's
not
not
about
about
me
me. And that's honestly what I had to realize with my marriage. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's and he fusses even now because I go, "What you doing to my baby? Where's my child?" And he was like, Last time I checked, and I tell them, yeah, I know, but I have to keep saying my child so people will know she belongs to me because she looks just like you. So,
She sure does look just like him. Thank you, Astanda.
thank
Tanya,
you,
we're
love.
waiting for you, my dear.
That's right, y'all. Click that link. I promise you.
Hey,
I
Tanya.
come on, Tanya, are you here? Come on. That's right. Come on, y'all. Sign up for this masterclass because I'm telling y'all, you need it. Okay?
She said you need it.
You need it. I'm telling you now. I'm not holding any whatever. So I told y'all I'm about the business now. We need to start working and supporting each other, and we need to start building each other up. And you cannot build yourself up with bad finances. So would you get your finances straight? Because Uncle Sam does not care.
Hmm.
He will come after you. And with all of this stuff going on, he's coming after you anyway.
Well,
Because
thank you,
he's trying to
Astanda.
find somebody that got the PPP loan the
Oh
wrong
Lord,
way.
them people going to the jailhouse.
So make sure your stuff is straight. And I can tell you, Mr. Stonda can help you make sure it's straight. So
Thank you,
I'm just
Astanda.
I'm just putting it out there, loves, because I love you, and I don't visit folks in jail. So
Lord Jesus. Mrs. Stonda gonna get you right though. She gonna get
that's
you
right.
right.
That's right. She said, "You're welcome." You guys,
Mhm.
I love you, Tanya.
You.
Wherever you come back in, drop your link for us, please. You guys
Thank you,
get
Tanya.
the journal. All the numbers flow together. Mm, that's right, Mr. Stonda. I tell you. Um, you guys, it's been real. Remember, life is just one big pivot.
Yeah.
How will you stand in your pivot? That's the question. Ooh,
That is the question.
y'all, she dropping some nuggets. Y'all better catch that. Y'all better catch that because we enjoyed you too, Mrs. Thunder.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. It's been real, but it's time to say goodnight. Happy
Well,
Valentine's Day. Happy Galentine's Day. Happy day.
and I'm
Be
gonna leave you
blessed.
with this.
With
Perseverance and push. You might just birth a new you. Good
and with
night.
that being said, good night.